Oh, they see it, don't they? That little twitch in their eye when you walk past. That involuntary step backward when you get too close. That nervous laugh when you smile just a second too long. Yeah, they feel it. The disconnect, the glitch in their comfort matrix. Because on paper you look normal, harmless, even approachable. But something in their reptilian brain is screaming run, and they don't know why. They can't explain it. They can't rationalize it. They just know that looking at you feels like staring at a predator wearing human skin. See, this is what happens when your soul outgrows your body, when your energy evolves faster than your physical form can keep up with. You're walking around in this cute little human costume, but underneath, there's something ancient, something that remembers things these domesticated humans have forgotten, something that makes their primitive instincts wake up and pay attention. And now they're confused because their eyes say safe, but their gut says danger. Their logic says friend, but their intuition says run. And that cognitive dissonance is driving them absolutely insane. They study your face, looking for the threat. They analyze your words, searching for the trap. They watch your movements, waiting for you to reveal what you really are. But you just stand there, looking perfectly normal, perfectly pleasant, perfectly human. And that's exactly what terrifies them the most, because predators that look like predators are easy to avoid, but you're camouflaged in kindness, wrapped in warmth, disguised as one of them, and their survival instincts don't know how to process that level of sophisticated deception. Even though you're not deceiving anyone, you're just existing at a frequency they can't comprehend. Let me tell you what's really happening here. Your trauma didn't break you, it evolved you. Your pain didn't weaken you, it sharpened you into something. These comfortable little humans don't have a word for you. You've been through hell, and instead of coming back damaged, you came back enhanced. And now you carry that underworld energy in your cells, that darkness in your DNA. That survivor's edge in every breath. And they can smell it on you like smoke from a fire they'll never be brave enough to walk through. They look at you and their lizard brain recognizes apex, but their conscious mind sees suburban, and the contradiction is making them malfunction. You know what's funny? They'll say things like, "There's something about you I can't put my finger on," or "You give off a vibe I can't explain," or "My gut tells me to be careful around you." And they'll laugh nervously, hoping you don't notice. But you do notice, don't you? Because you've become hyper-aware of how people's bodies betray their thoughts, how their micro-expressions reveal their fear, how their energy shifts when you enter their space. You've developed the sensory apparatus of a hunter, not because you're hunting, but because being hunted for so long taught you to read every room like a battlefield. And this is where it gets interesting, because you're not actually dangerous to them, not physically, not intentionally, but you are dangerous to their illusions, to their false sense of security, to their comfortable lies about how the world works. Your very existence proves that humans can transform into something else, something more, something that doesn't fit into their neat little categories of good and evil, safe and dangerous. Us and them. You're the walking proof that evolution doesn't stop at biology, that consciousness can mutate, that souls can shed their skin and grow new ones, made of lessons learned in places these people pretend don't exist. They watch you move through space and something feels off because you don't move like prey anymore, but you don't quite move like a predator either. You move like something that's transcended the food chain entirely, something that's opted out of their whole survival hierarchy and created its own ecosystem. You walk into a room and the energy reorganizes itself around you, not because you demand it, but because your presence carries a gravity that their lightweight existence can't resist. They feel themselves being pulled into your orbit, and they don't understand why they simultaneously want to get closer and run away. Here's what they'll never tell you, but I will. You trigger their uncanny valley response, that creepy feeling humans get when something looks almost human but not quite. That's what you're doing to them energetically. You look like them, you talk like them, you smile like them, but something in your frequency screams different, and their primitive brain interprets different as threat, even though the only thing you're threatening is their worldview, their comfort zone, their ability to pretend that everyone is playing by the same rules. Because you're not playing by their rules anymore, are you? You've discovered that their rules were designed to keep you small, to keep you manageable, to keep you from discovering what you're actually capable of. And now that you've broken free from that programming, you move through their world like a tourist from another dimension, observing their little games and social contracts with the detached amusement of someone who's seen behind the curtain. Someone who knows the whole thing is just elaborate theater designed to keep the sheep from realizing they outnumber the shepherds. Let's talk about your eyes for a second, because that's usually where they notice it first. That depth. That knowing, that 1,000-yard stare that sees through their masks like they're made of tissue paper. You've got the eyes of someone who's died and come back multiple times. Someone who's been to the bottom of the abyss and decided to redecorate. Someone who's made friends with their demons and now walks with an army of shadows as backup. They look into your eyes and see their own mortality reflected back at them, their own untapped potential, their own cowardice in choosing comfort over growth, and your smile. Oh, that smile. It's not the smile of someone who's happy in their simple little world. It's the smile of someone who's tasted their own blood and liked the iron. Someone who's been shattered into a million pieces and rebuilt themselves into a mosaic that catches light in ways that make people uncomfortable. It's the smile of someone who knows secrets, who's seen the other side, who's walked through hell in gasoline underwear and came out laughing. And when you smile like that, their inner child wants to trust you, but their inner animal knows better. You make them feel like prey without ever hunting them. You make them feel small without ever diminishing them. You make them feel exposed without ever looking at them directly, because your mere presence is a mirror that shows them everything they're not, everything they're afraid to become, everything they sacrificed for the illusion of safety and security. You're the embodiment of the road not taken, the choice. They were too scared to make the person they could have been if they'd been willing to pay the price in pain and transformation that you paid. They'll try to figure you out, try to categorize you, try to make you make sense within their limited framework. They'll assign you labels: introvert, empath, old soul, indigo child, but none of them quite fit, because you're not a type. You're anomaly. You're not a category. You're a glitch in their classification system. You're what happens when a human being actually evolves, instead of just aging, when consciousness expands beyond the boundaries of social conditioning, when a soul refuses to stay in the shape that trauma tried to force it into. And this is why they panic. This is why they feel that fight or flight response in your presence. Because you represent possibility, and possibility is terrifying to people who've built their entire identity around limitation. You show them that the cage door has been open all along, that the chains were made of paper, that the monster under the bed was actually the power they were too afraid to claim, and that knowledge that awareness, that sudden recognition of their own voluntary imprisonment is more terrifying to them than any external threat could ever be. You've become the thing they fear most, not a monster. But proof that monsters can evolve into something else entirely, something that doesn't fit into their binary system of predator and prey, something that exists outside their food chain altogether, something that feeds on transformation instead of flesh, on growth instead of destruction, on becoming instead of consuming. And they don't have a word for that. They don't have a box for that. They don't have a defense against that. So they panic, they project, they pull away, they whisper about your energy, about your vibe, about how something feels off. But what really feels off to them is how right you feel in your own skin after all these years of wearing masks. What really disturbs them is how comfortable you are with your shadows when they're still running from theirs. What really sends them into fight or flight is how you've made peace with the parts of yourself they are still at war with. Because here's the secret they'll never admit. You're showing them their own potential. And that's the most terrifying thing a human being can see. The gap between who they are and who they could be if they were brave enough to burn down everything false about themselves and rebuild from the ashes. You're the walking reminder that transformation is possible, but painful. That power is available but expensive. That authenticity exists but demands the sacrifice of every comfortable lie they've told themselves about who they are. Let me paint you the full picture of what you've become, because I don't think you fully grasp the magnitude of your transformation yet. You're not just different, you're differentiated. You've separated yourself from the herd, not through arrogance, but through alchemy. You've taken every poison they fed you and turned it into medicine. Every wound they gave you and turned it into wisdom. Every attempt to break you and turned it into breakthrough. And now you walk among them like a lamb that learned to speak wolf, like a sheep that grew teeth like prey, that decided to become its own ecosystem. They feel it in your handshake, that grip that's just a little too firm, a little too steady, a little too sure. Like you're not shaking their hand, you're taking their measure. They feel it in your hug, that embrace that should feel warm, but somehow feels like being held by something that could crush them but chooses not to. They feel it in your presence. That weight, that density, that gravitational pull that makes them feel simultaneously seen and exposed, safe and endangered, understood and utterly alien. You've developed what I call predator consciousness without predatory intent. You have the awareness of a hunter, the instincts of a killer, the patience of a stalker. But you use all of that evolved machinery for protection, not predation, for boundaries, not violence, for observation, not attack. You've become the sheepdog that looks just enough like a wolf to make the sheep nervous, but just enough like a sheep to be allowed in the pen. And that liminal space you occupy, that threshold between categories, is what sends their threat detection systems into overdrive, because evolution doesn't announce itself. Evolution doesn't wear a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm a more advanced version of you." Evolution just shows up, looking familiar but feeling foreign, speaking the same language but meaning different things, wearing a human face but carrying an inhuman depth of experience and understanding. And that's exactly what you are, an evolutionary leap, disguised as a regular person, a mutation that learned to mimic normalcy, a new species pretending to be the old one. They can sense that you've been somewhere they haven't, that you've survived something that would have killed them, that you've integrated experiences that would have shattered their psyche. You carry the smell of other dimensions on you, the residue of battles fought in realms they don't believe exist, the scars from wounds inflicted by weapons they can't see. And all of that alien experience has changed you at a cellular level, has rewritten your energetic signature, has transformed you into something that looks human but feels like something else entirely. And what really messes with them is that you're not trying to be different. You're not performing uniqueness, you're not cosplaying as dangerous, you're just being. And that authentic being, that natural state, that default setting of yours, vibrates at a frequency that makes their teeth hurt, that makes their skin crawl, that makes their primitive brain scream. This one is not like us. This one has been changed. This one knows things. This one sees things. This one is things that we are not equipped to understand or defend against. You make them feel like NPCs in their own life, like background characters in your story, like extras in a movie where you're not even the main character, but something beyond character altogether. You're the disruption in their algorithm, the variable they didn't account for, the wild card that makes all their careful calculations meaningless. You don't play by their rules, not because you're rebellious, but because you're playing an entirely different game, one they don't even know exists. So when they say your vibe doesn't match your look, what they really mean is your soul has outgrown its costume. Your consciousness has exceeded its container. Your energy has evolved beyond what your physical form suggests, should be possible. You're wearing a human suit, but broadcasting a signal from somewhere else, somewhere deeper, somewhere darker, somewhere more real than the surface level existence they're comfortable with. And that discord, that dissonance, that gap between what they see and what they sense is what sends them into panic, because you force them to confront the possibility that they've been playing it safe in a game that rewards risk, that they've been following rules that don't actually exist, that they've been limiting themselves based on fears that you've proven can be overcome. You're the proof that the prison is voluntary, that the chains are imaginary, that the only thing keeping them small is their own refusal to grow, and that recognition, that sudden awareness of their own complicity and their limitation is what really terrifies them. You're not a threat to their body, you're a threat to their entire worldview. You're not dangerous to their physical safety, you're dangerous to their psychological comfort. You're not a predator hunting for flesh, you're a mirror reflecting their cowardice. And that's so much worse, because they can't fight you, they can't run from you, they can't even properly fear you because you haven't done anything wrong except exist at a level of authenticity that makes their performance look like the desperate theater it really is. They'll try to make you wrong for it, try to shame you back into shrinking, try to convince you that fitting in is more important than standing out. But you can't go back, can you? You can't uninvent yourself. You can't re-become who you were before the transformation. You can't stuff your expanded consciousness back into that tiny little box they want you to live in. You've grown too large for their comfort zone, too deep for their shallow end, too real for their facade. And now you have no choice but to own it. So let them panic, let them feel that primitive fear. Let them struggle to reconcile what they see with what they sense, because their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their inability to process your evolution is not your problem. Their fear of what you represent is not your burden to carry. You didn't ask to become this, you just survived. What should have killed you and came out changed, and if that change makes them uncomfortable, maybe they should ask themselves why they're so committed to staying the same. Because here's what they refuse to understand. Transformation isn't optional, it's inevitable. The only choice is whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, whether you direct it or let it happen to you. whether you become the author of your own evolution or just another victim of natural selection. And you chose to be conscious. You chose to participate in your own becoming. You chose to embrace the destruction and reconstruction of self, and that choice, that agency, that sovereignty is what they really fear. Not your vibe, not your energy, not even your evolved consciousness, but your proof that choice exists, that change is possible, that the comfortable prison they're living in has an exit door they're just too scared to walk through. You're the escaped prisoner who came back, not to free them, but just to exist as evidence that freedom is possible. And that evidence, that living proof, that walking reminder of what they could be if they were willing to pay the price,